Right. So as I mentioned, we are continuing objective 2. We are looking at the outline to outline the history and present use of animation and game design. We're continuing the history of animation. Now, when it comes to the history of animation and the history of game design, you're going to notice that where they started, where animation started, and where game design started is going to be a lot different in terms of time period. Anybody want to say why, or you have an idea as to why? Why do they have? So, for example, animation, when we were going over it in our last class, we could say some was in the BC era, some started in the 1800s, 1700s, and so on. Let's see, 1800s. But when we go through game design, we're going to notice that that actually started in the 1900s. Why that variation there? Any idea? Alright, we're going to give you an idea. What is animation? Once again, in a nutshell, what is animation?
The bringing together of a large number of images to create a motion
Good.
or movement.
Sequence.
Movement or motion. Good. Very good. So not only images, but bringing together anything that is lifeless, or bringing together images, objects, whatever you want to say, and you're given the illusion of movement or motion. That is animation. So when you think about it, do you need fancy technology in order to do that?
No.
High-end technology?
Oh, I was gonna say that.
Good. You
So
don't need.
basically,
Go on.
with the game design, that started at a late period because of the development of like the latest technology.
Very good. That is it. Because remember, games basically use what?
Animation.
In order to function generally, in order for you to play a game, what do you need?
Let's call it good graphics.
In general, the general term, the device, the general device.
Oh,
A computer. You basically need a
Yeah.
computer in order to play a game. So that's why there's a difference in the time.
In order to play a game,
Yeah. Well, a digital game.
and use phone too.
well, most games can be played on computer. I mean, like Ariel with those top playing games like COD and Free Fire. or whatever.
So, IT students, do you know
Your
a
mobile
computer?
the same.
Do you know a computer is not only a computer? Computer
Huh?
does not refer only to desktop and laptops.
Oh,
A robot is a computer. Your smartwatch is a computer. A traffic light system is a computer. You guys know that? You're supposed to know that.
Where is Ariel?
That's why I'm using the term computer, because the technology in terms of developing computers, that would have started in the 1900s. And so when it started to get to the stage where we could have used computers, that is where game development would have also started. So that's why there's a variation in the time frame when animation would have started and when game design would have started. Because animation, you could have basically used any sort of technology to create the illusion of movement, but games needed that computer system. Excuse me. Games needed that computer system in order to function. So let's continue. Try to figure out where we left off. Good. So one of the things that we were talking about in the last class was that they try to give illusion of movement. Even though these images were done years ago, thousands of years ago in BC, in Egypt's time, and so on, they are actually not animation. Yes, it's one image after the other. It's showing movement between the images, but what is it not doing? What are these images not doing?
Sir, they're not emotion.
They're not in motion. That is exactly correct. They are not in motion. So they're not in motion to give you that illusion of movement. If this sequence of goats here, if they were to move across the screen, like something like this here, if they were to move like this here across the screen, then that would have been animation. That would have given the illusion of movement. But the mere fact that it's just one image after each other, it is not animation. It's just one drawing after each other. So you need, for animation, you need something to cause movement, to give you that illusion of movement. So let's see. I think we stopped around that area. So we stopped around that area. So we can start from here. We can start the reading from there. So in Egypt, Alia, you can start the reading.
In Egypt, there were found drawings which referred to 2000 year BC. There was an idea to name these drawings as the examples of first animation, but at that time, no special equipment could show the drawings in motion. History of animation started on 20th of July 1887 in France. Charles Emile Reynaud, self-taught engineer, created and presented the first praxinoscope on 28th on the 28th of October 1892. He projected the first animated film in public, Pauvre Periot, at the Monsieur Griffin in Paris. This film is also notable as the first known instance of film perforations being used.
Right. And that basically covers what I would have just said. So even though they had drawings, there wasn't anything causing movement. There wasn't anything causing any motion. So it didn't give that illusion of movement. So it was not animation. It was not considered animation. So until the 1800s, that is where we got our first animation. That is where we would have gotten the illusion of movement. So you guys are gonna watch the videos. At your own time. So that's the percinoscope. So notice the image is in motion there. Yeah, I think we also looked at this also. The images, the drawings, they are in motion. So that's the key aspect there, that they are in motion, and that gives us the illusion of movement as animation. Good, so let's continue. Ariel, you could read.
First cartoons were up to 50 minutes long, drawn and painted by hand. Even then, sound could be applied, synchronized with the image. Renaud also created cartoons wherein production were used photos and drawings. Later on, others made a contribution to the development of animators, creating paintings in a variety of genres and techniques.
Good. So remember, you can basically use anything. Photos, drawings, paintings, once you can put it in motion to give you the illusion of movement. And that's basically this prosthetic here. It's drawings, and once you spin it, it gives you that illusion of movement here. Alright. Ariel, continue reading.
Active development of animation started at the beginning of the 20th century. In one moment, several independent people separate from each other started to create animation. George Méliès accidentally invented the technique of shooting stop motion. The point of this technique is that Méliès shot the scene that changed the next scene and shot again, etc. Then after, quick change in frames appeared, the animation effect.
Good.
James Stewart.
Alright, you can pause there as we look at the video. Get an idea what we're talking about. So these are actually people in this image here, but not sure if you can pick it up. But you can see that it's actually not smooth. It's not.
Yeah, I can see it.
Right. It's not one seamless video. So what this person did, George, he took a series of pictures, and when he took that series of pictures and he put them together one after each other, it gave the illusion of movement, and that is stop motion basically. One image, you take an image, you change the scene slightly, take another image, and that is stop motion. So depending on basically how you want it to, how choppy you want it to look, that goes back to the frame per second that we were discussing, I think, yesterday. And if you want it smoother, you would go higher frame per second. Good. Zane, you can continue reading.
James Stewart Blackton created animated smoke in 1906. Winsor McCay created the first cartoon in 1906. Walt Disney was the first who used sound in animation. He was a pioneer who used color in animation. One of most reasonable Disney's inventions was the animation stand, which helped to receive the effects of parallax, elongated shapes of figures, the depth and fuzziness. This studio created many famous characters like Mickey Mouse, Pluto, Goofy, etc. Commercial successes of animators spread all over the world and inspired people to open animation studios. By 1930, there were a lot of running animation studios such as Universal Pictures, Paramount, Warner Brothers, etc., which work till now. Animated studios of 60th to 70th, whose used computer technology were opened by scientists from universities and artists. First researching or discoveries of computer graphics were used in 1963, based on Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, when Ivan Edward Sutherland invented Sketchpad, an innovative program that influenced alternative forms of interaction with computers.
Good. So, if you notice so far that in the past, leading up to the 1800s, animation would have been done with drawings, paintings, images, and so on. But now, basically when technology started to grow, when we started to get computers, they started looking into computer graphics now. How can we create this image now on the computer and basically create animation now on the computer? And that would have started since 1963. Remember, we're looking at the history of animation, where it started, how it began, and where leading up to where we are today and the future. Alia, you can continue reading.
In the USSR, first results in computer animation were associated with the name Yuri Beyakovsky. In 1990, at SIGGRAPH ACM Association gave him an award, Computer Graphics Pioneer. Now Yuri Matveyevich is a head at MGU Laboratory of Graphics and Media at the Faculty of Computational Mathematics and Cybernetics. Graphics, I don't have to read that. And at that time, work at the Institute of Applied Mathematics named by Mitsta, Mstislav Keldysh Academy of Science. For many years, he was a head of the Department of Computer Graphics there. In 1964, Yuri made the first modeling of plasma flow over a cylinder in collaboration with physicist Tamara Sushkevich. That was the first operation in the USSR, according to Computer Graphics. In 1971, Institute of Applied Mathematics developed advanced software for creating the computer movies and created the camera, which captures the frames from the display. Using the system, soon was made two spectacular animations, a visualization of the robot and modeled the interaction of two galaxies. In the state of Utah at the beginning of the 70th century, as the 70th, there were some important works in animation. Animated Hand and Face by Ed Catmull, 1972. Walking and Speaking Figure created by Barry Wexler, 1973. Speaking Face by Fred Park, 1974. And today, it seems that the quality of animation was primitive, but at the same time, it was impressive.
Good. So, as technology advanced, as mentioned, they started to basically practice with technology, with computers to see how they could have created animation. And we have some examples here of such persons who would have did that. Now let's see this video here. Okay, I think this is just a discussion. Okay. So today, if we look back at those animation, especially, I think it's gonna be this one here. This animation here, we're gonna say that is terrible. That's poor quality. But when you think about it, that's actually impressive, especially for that time period when they were now getting into technology, when they were now putting all these things together to do all of this work. So even though it might not be impressive today, it was in the past. Ariel, you can continue the reading.
At the end of the 70th Technological Institute of New York began working on a project of creation film, The Works. Completely constructed on computer using 3D animation, project wasn't finished but some fragments were shown during the conference SIGGRAPH. These fragments demonstrated the quality of visualization, articulated figures, and interacting objects. During the creation of the works, it used the system BBOP, 3D animation system of articulated figures. At the beginning of the 80th contribution to the animation development made Daniel Tolman, Laboratory Computer Animation Dreamflight. Tony D. Peltria, Rendezvous, Montreal, among others who influenced on animation were Ed M. Schwiller, who showed moving textural maps in Sunstone. Jim Blinn created animation for Voyager. Don Greenberg created architecture roundabout way for Cornell and University and others.
Good, very good. So we're looking at where basically leading up to what we are today. Technology, they started with computers, animating with computers, designing on the computer. Well, obviously they was started off with 2D, and then they start experimenting with 3D now.
Seems I'm not in anymore. I was the best, the craziest. And now, well, it's dust to dust and somebody new comes along.
So that was 3D in 1985. A bit dark.
Why such a stone face?
And another 3D animation that was created in 1987. So from that time period, we started progressing towards 3D animation. Zane, you can continue reading.
In 1890, technical development made headway. At this time, graphical programs became more compound. Turner Whitted introduced the concept ray tracing with the elimination of errors in sampling. Nelson Max produced several movies about molecules and one with animated waves. Lauren Carpenter showcased his software for generating and rendering fractally generating landscapes. Movies started to be shown with increasingly used computer special effects, simulated tornadoes using particle systems, vampire transformation into flying characters with no legs, etc. The film Young Sherlock Holmes, 1986, was the first film which contained artificial characters.
Good. So note that even though they were using computer graphics, they were still drawing the graphics. They were still drawing the images and putting it into the computer. But now they were heading to a stage whereby they are digitally creating the characters. So for example, Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs, they were digitally created. Where are you? So obviously we know we don't have any dinosaurs in existence that you guys know of. So in order for them to record that, they would have to digitally create that character. Continue the readings in.
In 1993, film Jurassic Park presented animated models of dinosaurs. In 1995 was shown the film Jumanji with models of real and made-up animals. The important trend in computer animation was the creation of artificial persons, indistinguishable from real. The pioneers were movies Tony de Peltry, 1985, Rendezvous Montreal, 1988, and others. In these films, the quality of animation was poor. It was obvious to the audience that the characters were not real because of that computer heroes had secondary roles.
Okay, good. So, um, Did you when you guys watched the movie Jumanji? Did you realize that the animals were fake? Did you guys ever think that the animals were fake?
It actually look real.
Yeah, to me, I never thought
Yeah.
that the animals were fake in Jumanji. It's only reading from this paragraph yesterday when I was making it. Then it clicked in my head that those animals were actually fake. It looks so real, and that was 1993, 1995, and that was possible back then, much less today. What is possible? But some persons they didn't get it perfect because in some movies, some videos, you can really tell that it is not real, not a real character. It's computer generated. So, like in these examples here, you can see that they are not real. So that's why we have this sentence here. Because of that, computer heroes had secondary roles, meaning that because they weren't so um, realistic, you can say they weren't so much of the primary focus when it comes to target whoever was viewing the content. Up to now, I haven't even watched this the name of this movie. Can't remember the name of this movie. Avatar. Still haven't watched it yet. Continuing, Alia.
Today's progress in models of light and texture makes it possible to design more realistic people. At the end of the at the end of the 20th century, a new animation technology, motion capture objects with some technical measuring equipment. The method of motion capture used in production CGI cartoons and for creating special effects in films. It's popular in video games production. Using this method in 2004 were created cartoons Polar Express, model Tom Hanks, Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings, model Andy Serkis. In 2006 and 2011, using this technology were created Renaissance, Beowulf, Christmas Carol, Avatar, Harry Potter.
Good. So those started using CGI, so actual persons were acting, and they would have placed certain trackers on them basically that would have monitored their movement, and they could have mapped that now to an animated character, creating a cartoon. So all of that information was taken from this website here. I think I took off all the information, so I think some of the videos, if you want to watch them, you can access them from here also. Um, 119. All right, let me just quickly run through this. So history of animation continued. This was taken. Oh, we're supposed to. So this is one of the videos that you should watch. This is a This video contains some of what is going to be discussed in this section here. The tomatrope, the photoscope, the zoetrope, flipbook, and those kind of things. Some of them are discussed in that video, so you can watch that. Those contents were taken from Wikipedia. Notice I have here, read more in Wikipedia, because it didn't make sense for me to copy and paste everything from Wikipedia. So watch this video, and let me go through the few animations that we have here, a few examples of animations. Next class we're going to start history of game design. Alright, Ariel, you can start the reading for us. Numerous devices.
Numerous devices that successfully displayed animated images were introduced well before the advent of the motion picture. These devices were used to entertain, amaze, and sometimes even frighten people. The majority of these devices didn't project their images and could only be viewed by one or a few persons at a time. They are considered optical toys rather than devices for a large scale entertainment industry, like later animation citation needed. Many of these devices are still built by and for film students learning the basic principles of animation. Prelude. An article in the Quarterly Journal of Science, Literature and Arts, 1821, raised interest in optical illusions of curved spokes in rotating wheels were seen through vertical apertures. In 1824, Peter Mark Roget provided mathematical details about the appearance of curvatures and added the observation that the spokes appeared motionless. Roget claimed that the illusion is due to the fact that an impression made by a pencil of rays on the retina, is sufficiently vivid to remain for a certain time after the cause has ceased. 29. This was later seen as the basis for the theory of persistence of vision, as a principle of how we see film as motion rather than the successive stream of still images actually presented to the eye. The theory has been discarded as the sole principle of the effect since 1912, but remains in many film history explanations. However, Roget's experiment and explanation did inspire further research by Michael Faraday and by Joseph Platter that eventually brought about the invention of animation.
Good. So one thing I want you guys to take note of now from what we just read here is that we were discussing the persistence of vision heavily yesterday. Some persons say that it's no longer in use, it's no longer valid, it's no longer true, and that's what you just read there also. So instead of focusing on the fact that if it is true or not, the principle behind it is what we should focus on. The mere fact that we humans we just need to see something for a certain amount of time, and we are capable of either remembering what we saw or perceiving a movement between two images. That's the principle you need to remember for coming from persistence of vision. So, because some say, I would have said that our persistence of vision is around 0.04 seconds. Some say 0.06. Some say 1/3 of a second. Some say 1/16 of a second. So there's different variation as to what is the theory of it. But the main principle for you to remember is what is the idea of it? Why are we studying it? It's because we're studying animation. How do we make images be perceived as moving? Well, that is determined by how long do we show the image for. That will determine the movement between the images that we can perceive. You guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, senor.
All right. Let's go through these couple examples quickly. So we have any questions so far? But anything we discussed? We discussed a lot of things so far. Any questions? Any comments? Any additions?
No.
You guys following so far?
Yeah, we're getting there.
So basically, what we looked at so far is how animation has evolved. So we started with drawings in the past. They draw one image after each other, but it wasn't animation because there was nothing causing motion. So that's still in the 1800s where we got some sort of technology that helped us to move between the images, move between the objects, and that would have caused animation. So let's look at some examples of some of those devices. The first is the thaumatrope. Um, Zane, you can read that.
In 18 in April 1825, the first thaumatrope was published by W. Phillips in anonymous association with John Ayrton Paris and became a popular toy. The pictures on either side of a small cardboard disc seem to blend into one combined image when it is twirled quickly by an attached strings. This is often used as an illusion
Alright,
of what.
excuse me, Zane. I think it'd be better if we have an idea of what we're talking about first, and then we describe it. How am I going to YouTube? Then we're gonna have a description of it, so that can help us to get an idea of what we're talking about. So thaumatrope. Let me copy the link. I think here's collection of images. Yes, okay, so it's something that you are side, something that you're spinning. Okay, so that's a thaumatrope there. So let me read the description and see if we can make sense of it now. Yes, Zane, you can go ahead. You can start from picture. The pictures.
The pictures on either side of a small cardboard disc seem to blend into one combined image when it is twirled quickly by the attached strings. This is often used as an illusion of what has often been called persistence of vision, presumably referred to the effect in which your impression of a single image persists, although in reality two different images are presented with interruption. It is unclear how much of the effect relates to positive alpha images. Although a thaumatrope can also be used for two-phase animation, no examples are known to have been produced with this effect until long after the Stisco had established the principle of animation.
Good. So let's go back to YouTube. Scope. Let's see how that functions.
Birdcage. What I want to show you how to.
So notice there, it's two image on the cardboard, and as you twirl back and forth, it's giving you the illusion of one image. So that's the thaumatrope there. Now the Stisco. Alia.
Stisco.
You're reading.
Wait. Oh, sorry. The Stisco. Better known by the misspelling was the first animation device using rapid successive substitution of sequential pictures. The pictures are evenly spaced radially around the disc with small rectangular apertures at the rim of the disc. The animation could be viewed through the slits of the spinning disc in front of a mirror. It was invented in November or December 1832 by the Belgian Joseph Plateau, and almost simultaneously by the Austrian Simon von Stampfer. Plateau first published about his invention in January 1833. The publication included an illustration plate of a phantoscope with 16 frames depicting a pirouetting dancer. The Phanasticoscope. Oh, Phanasticoscope. It was successful as a novelty toy, and within a year, many sets of stroboscopic discs were published across Europe, with almost as many different names for the device, including Phantascope, Plateau, the stroboscope, Stamfer, and Phanasticoscope. Parisian publisher Gero and C.
Very good. So let's look at an example. So it says that the pictures are evenly spaced radially around a disc with small rectangular apertures at the rim. So that's what we're seeing, those small apertures there. The animation could be viewed through the slits of the spinning disc in front of a mirror. So I wanted to see it not moving. I just wanted to see it not moving. Okay. So it's a variation in the image. That's what I wanted to know. It's a variation in the images. Notice this one is down, this one is up, this one is a little up, and so on. So it's a variation with the image, and as it spins, it gives you that illusion of movement. Let me just look at a zoetrope. Was that listed at the bottom here? No. So basically what happens is that this, I'm not sure why, but for most of these animations with these moving images, something has to be in front of the image and move across the screen to actually give you that perception of motion. Because you notice that here something has to be passing in front of the screen, and I think that was the same for, well, not the same for this here. This one, I think this one is just spinning. Flip book. Well, we all should know what is a flip book. It's just basically a series of drawings on a page, on a book, and you basically move or go through the entire book. So you keep flipping pages by pages and you get animation here. You press Cinescope. Okay, so it looks like it's one image. Oh, it's different images, and then it's reflecting onto the mirrors in the center and giving you that illusion of movement. Alright, and the last one. The Stisco. So sequence painted on glass disc, but it's a practical projector that he used to popular. Oh, that one is a projector. So he painted on the glass, and more than likely he shined a light through it. That's why it's being shown like this here. Yeah, he shined a light through the edge, and that would have been reflected on a surface. And while he spin the disc, it would have given you the illusion of movement, hence animation. So your responsibility is to read through these examples here. Animation before film. We already looked at these examples here in the 1800s. You are going to continue 1888 to 1908. These examples here. The 1910s, 1920s, and so on. You are going to continue your research on the different types of animation, how it was done in the past. So that is your homework, that's your research project. So next week, or not next week, or whenever is our next ADG class, we're going to start with history of game design there. So basically, in a nutshell, in a review of what we looked at today, we looked at the history of animation. And remember, when we're looking at the history, we got to look at what happened in the past, what are we doing today, and what is going to happen in the future. So we already looked at all of those techniques in the past, and then leading up to today, we were using computer graphics. We were using computers to draw, to digitize, to do our animations, 3D animation, CGI, and so on. So what is the future? We're going to discuss that. I think I have some notes on that towards the bottom for animation. What's the future for animation? So when we finish the game design, we're going to look at that. Any questions before we end?
No, sir.
No, senor.
Alright, well, if you guys don't have any questions, any concerns, anything you need clarification on, that is the end of today's